Everybody? Yeah, come. Right, right. Come on over. I'm glad you're up front.
I'm always up front.
You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. In particular, I want to thank the organizations who are standing with me and that are represented here. We have the Hispanic Interest Coalition of Alabama present, the Birmingham Islamic Society, Faith in Action Alabama, the ACIJ, the Greater Birmingham Ministries, the Birmingham CME churches, as well as the Birmingham UCC churches. I'm grateful to the work that they have been doing for some time in our community, the work of human rights in the great city of Birmingham. As you know, Birmingham has a history of being the focal point of the civil rights movement in this country. We were recently designated by President Obama as a National Historic Monument district here because of the work that we have done down through the years in the area of human and civil rights. Today we're faced with new challenges. We're faced with a ill-conceived and ill-thought-of executive action on behalf of by the President of the United States that really is contrary to what Birmingham, Alabama, and the human rights movement and the civil rights movement has been about. I've been in discussions both with my legal department, with the various organizations that are represented here, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the Welcoming America organization, and a number of other organizations around the country who stand united in trying to find ways to circumvent, move around, or defeat the action that has been taken that would treat other individuals as less than human. I also recognize the fact that in 2011, there was a bill which was commonly referred to as House Bill 56. It was enacted into law, and it is the Beeson-Hammond Act that restricts municipalities in the state of Alabama from identifying themselves and acting or putting in place policies under the Sanctuary Cities Act. That law, many of its elements, in fact, the overwhelming majority of its elements were struck down when it was appealed to the federal courts. There are still some elements of that law that are in place that prevents cities that do not have home rule, and Birmingham is one of those cities that do not have home rule, from acting outside of the directive or legislative powers given to it by the Alabama legislature. However, having said that, there are a number of other ways that we can take action to, one, demonstrate that we do welcome immigrants and foreigners to our community. Under the 1901 Constitution, there are two sections that are appropriate at this time. Is Section 30 and Section 34, and I'll read Section 30 in part, just one line from that. It says that immigration shall be encouraged, immigration shall not be prohibited, and no citizen and no visitor shall be exiled. And then that was Section 30, and under Section 34 it says, foreigners who are and may hereafter become bona fide resident of this state shall enjoy the same rights and respect to the possession, enjoyment, and inheritance of property as native-born citizens. And we are planning on exercising the actions of the city based on the 1901 Constitution as to how we deal with foreigners and immigrants in our community. We will not allow our police department to become a second arm of the federal government in terms of policing federal laws. We will protect the citizens against any individual, whether foreign or domestic, that violate the laws in this community, criminal laws in this community, and we'll take the appropriate action to deal with that. But we will not become an enforcement arm of the immigration services of this country. Secondly, any citizen who comes to Birmingham should expect that we would treat them as we treat anyone who would come for a business license or any type of municipal action to be taken, as long as they provide some type of identification that our clerks and our departments feel is sufficient to identify that individual. We will accept those identifications, whether they're issued by the state of Alabama or any other state or any other entity. We will accept it, and that will be up to the judgment of the individuals who work the desk in our various departments. The question has been raised about stop and frisk. As you all know, in New York City, that stop and frisk was challenged by the federal courts, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was ruled unconstitutional. The city of Birmingham has never implemented stop and frisk, and nor will we do so now, especially with the Supreme Court having designated that as against the Constitution. So citizens should have no fear that the police department of the city of Birmingham will try to institute some draconian measure as that. We will continue to protect the rights of the citizens of this great city, as well as any visitors or any residents or any immigrant who comes here. I want to say that as it relates to our overall efforts, I'm going to ask the council to put forth a resolution identifying Birmingham not as a sanctuary city, but as a welcoming city, part of the Welcoming America initiative that will work towards the goal of making sure that every individual who resides, work, play, or come through the city of Birmingham will know that they are welcome, and they should have no fear about interacting with their municipal government here in any way. I have asked this body to convene on a quarterly basis at a minimum to look at other ways we can assist individuals in interacting in a positive way with our municipal government and act accordingly. So at this time, again, I'd like to thank everyone here, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions. If I can't answer those questions, I have representatives from the different organizations who might want to chime in, as well as some legal representation here.
Mayor Bell,
yes.
you had said that you were going to make the distinction there between sanctuary city and welcoming city. You also talked about the police tactics not going to be issuing or engaging in stop
yes.
and frisk policies. Will you be directing the police department to not cooperate or report individuals who are undocumented immigrants to your federal counterparts such as ICE and the Department of Justice?
I will be directing the police department to carry out the laws of the municipal government as it relates to criminal activity. Anything beyond criminal activity, the police department should not have a role in that, one way or the other.
Okay. What about federal law?
If federal law is violated, then the appropriate agencies would handle that, not the police department of the city of Birmingham.
Mayor, what is the up until this moment in this new government, what has been the policy of Birmingham Police Department as it goes with working with ICE and other federal agencies?
Well, after the law was passed, after the House Bill 56 was passed, the Beeson-Hammond Act, my police chief, along with myself and other entities within the city government, filed a brief objecting to the act being enacted, and we prevailed in having the majority of that bill put to the side. We will continue to work to make sure that we do everything to make Birmingham a welcoming city, to make sure that Birmingham is a city that does not employ draconian measures to put that burden on the citizens, residents, and visitors of this great city.
Can you explain the difference? What limitations do exist with House Bill 56? You had said it prevents you from declaring this a sanctuary city. Is there anything else that it limits you in doing in terms of challenging these policies?
Well, we're in the process of analyzing every aspect of what remains of that House bill. There are some elements of it that, for example, it restricts us from issuing municipal IDs. We can't issue a municipal ID. That does not say that we cannot recognize other IDs that would be put forth. We're going to be asking the legislature to clean up that act as it relates to the decision of the courts. We're also going to ask that Class 1 municipalities be exempted from the Beeson-Hammond Act so that we can make sure that Birmingham continues to welcome all individuals.
President Donald Trump issued an executive order last week saying that any city that declares itself or acts as a sanctuary city should not be eligible to receive any federal grants that are not directly needed for public safety. Are you concerned, even though you've made this distinction, that that could be something that could happen to the city of Birmingham and its law enforcement agencies?
Well, again, the city of Birmingham is not declaring itself as a sanctuary city. Any action by the federal government would have to show that we violated in some way, shape, or form what they are calling for. And to my knowledge, according to my attorneys, by declaring ourselves as a welcoming city and putting in place those activities that does not violate per se the executive order, but allow us to continue to welcome people, we will do all of those things and more.
Well,
Yes.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you see this move as being in line with Birmingham's continued role as a city that fights for human civil rights?
When I met with this group, I indicated then that their role is to continue to put pressure on elected officials like myself, county officials, state legislatures, and the federal government as well. Birmingham has always stood up for doing what's right by people. That pressure came through the marches of Dr. Shuttlesworth, through the actions of Dr. King and others. This is a modern day movement. That pressure still needs to be applied. Here in Birmingham, we understand that, and my being a child of the civil rights movement, I understand that as well. I'm in a different capacity than they are. They can put pressure on me and other elected officials to do the right thing by all people, and that's what we're working towards.
Mayor, you had mentioned the civil rights movement, and I was just thinking, in history, at that point, the city and the civil rights activists were relying on federal authority to help get their message and get
Yes.
laws passed. Now, you've taken a stance to try to avoid some of the laws or policies, at least by the federal government. Can you explain to someone, as you mentioned, who grew up or was aware of that time, how you feel seeing now how things have changed, at least for the position of you and the people supporting you?
You know, there were several different movements going on all at the same time. There was the activism in the streets that was led by people like Arthur Shores and Fred Shuttlesworth, and not Arthur Shores, but Fred Shuttlesworth, Dr. King, and Ralph Abernathy. But then there was activism in the courts, and that was led by Arthur Shores, Orzel Billingsley, the former Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and others. We have tons of records about the legal actions that were taken by local attorneys and national attorneys. And at the bottom line of all of those actions was a reliance that if we could get those actions into the federal court, that the federal court, based on our U.S. Constitution, would in fact be supportive of what they were trying to do. That has been turned upside down. I was just thinking about when I was a kid, I used to read Superman comic books, and there was one called Bizarro World, where everything was flipped upside down. And I think that is what's happening right now. The president is the president, but I think he's misguided and does not understand really what the Constitution is all about and the federal protections that should be in place for all citizens, all residents, and anyone who comes to these borders should be afforded those same opportunities.
Right now, as we're discussing this, could be a vote at any moment for Senator Jeff Sessions to be put in as U.S. Attorney General, or to move that process forward, I should say. If he is put in that position, this is a man who has represented the state of Alabama. Is there any relationship there that you could call upon in terms of this? I mean, he is the man who would be, according to Trump's executive order, determining or having the ability to enforce whether or not those grants that we mentioned, for example, are issued. Is there an Alabama to Alabama connection there at all that you can call upon?
You know, there certainly have been times in the past that I've called on Senator Sessions, and we had a great working relationship as senator. I disagree with a lot of his political beliefs. I disagree with the direction that the administration of which he is about to become a member of, should the federal government, should the legislature approve his nomination. but I would hope that I would still have the ability to reach out to Senator Sessions or Attorney General Sessions, as I did with Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Attorney General Holder. Since I've been in office, I have had that relationship with all the Attorney Generals, and they have been very helpful to the city of Birmingham with initiatives that we have put in place. And I expect to have that same dialogue and that same ability to talk to Senator Sessions. That is the only way we can get people to really come together, is by communicating. To throw down a gauntlet and say you're not going to talk, or to throw down a gauntlet and say that no matter what you say, I'm not going to hear you. Well, what do I expect from you? If I'm not going to hear you and you're not going to hear me, we get nowhere. So I anticipate, as the mayor of the city of Birmingham, I would still be willing to reach out to anyone that we can have some influence on not allowing this country to become an island unto itself.
Mayor, look, you mentioned throw down the gauntlet. I'll ask, basically, with this position that you're taking today, do you see the city of Birmingham at odds with the Trump administration when it comes to the issue of immigration?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
And do you think that this is going to be, if they act on it, do you foresee this being a prolonged battle that could end up in the courts or wherever in the months and years to come?
As we stand here, I know that within the U.S. Conference of Mayors, there's activity that's ongoing now to bring a sense of pressure to the administration from mayors all across this country. We had the executive leadership of the U.S. Conference of Mayors issue statements on either yesterday or the day before about the president's action. There are other organizations, the African American Mayors Association, that is speaking out on this issue, of which I'm the past president. We have a number. This is not something that Birmingham is an isolated island out there, and other municipalities across the country will be speaking up, and we'll be a part of that cry for a change in the administration's position on things such as its immigration policies. Thank you all so much, and ladies and gentlemen, I really do appreciate you being here and the ongoing dialogue that we'll be having. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you.